You're just a useless leech, you know that? While packing for my sister's wedding, my mother-in-law Emma spilled beer on me. With no earnings of your own, attending a wedding on someone else's dime? You're like a thief, she said. She dumps all the household work on me, treating me like a housekeeper. I've endured until now, but this treatment is just too much. Can't even manage household chores properly, yet you want to go to a wedding? How selfish of you, she continued. Smirking as he joins in is my husband, Oliver. My name is Ava, a 32-year-old housewife. I met Oliver through friends and agreed to marry him on the condition that I quit my job to focus on household duties and live with his parents. Initially resistant to living together, I reluctantly agreed, thinking it would reduce the burden of rent if I quit my job. But soon after moving in, I realized this was a mistake. Your soup is always too thick. Drinking this constantly would lead to high blood pressure, complained my in-laws. I'm sorry. I thought I had made it thinner, I replied. But my in-laws never seem satisfied with my cooking. They always complain about my dishes, yet Emma never cooks. If we get sick, it's your fault. I'm sorry. I'll be careful, I apologized again. Even as I apologize, Oliver, sitting next to me, pretends not to notice. He never stands up for me. Emma regularly invites her friends over for tea parties. Hurry up with the snacks, you're always so slow. Move it, she demanded. Serving snacks and making coffee are always my responsibilities, and so is washing and tidying up the mountains of dishes after they leave. When I talk to Oliver about it, he says, it's natural for a wife to help out when mom's having fun. He's unresponsive. Mom, why don't you get the trendy pastries from the station for tomorrow's tea party? That's a good idea, but the line there is always so long. Just have Ava do it. Right, Ava? Go line up early tomorrow and buy them, he instructed. With that, he leaves for work. I'm not just a housekeeper. My frustration keeps growing. It's infuriating that both Emma and Oliver treat me like a slave. On top of that, living on Oliver's salary and his parents' pension is barely manageable, yet they insist on expensive snacks and coffee for these tea parties. While they are harsh to me at home, Emma and Oliver maintain a good public image, leaving me with no one to understand my plight. People say living with in-laws is tough, but your mother-in-law seems so kind. I don't know how to respond to such comments. What I really want to say is, I'm being harassed by my mother-in-law, but I'm too scared to make a fuss and stay silent. Your husband even greets us every morning. Oliver only takes out the trash to maintain a good impression with the neighbors. I'm the one who gathers all the trash and prepares the bags at the entrance. He just carries them to the trash collection area. He even helps with taking out the trash. What a cooperative husband you have. I'm envious. Should I be grateful that at least my husband takes out the trash, unlike some men who don't even do that? He never clears the table after eating and leaves cups wherever he last used them. His habit of leaving clothes strewn about only adds to my endless chores. Despite being a housewife herself, Emma does no household work at all. Bring the coffee before being asked. You're always so slow, she snapped. I'm swamped with chores from morning till night and can hardly keep up with my in-laws' coffee demands. Emma, who never lifts a finger herself, is quick to tell me what to do and always finds something I haven't done to criticize. Can't you do something about the water stains in the bathroom? You're supposed to clean it before it gets dirty. It's embarrassing how incompetent my daughter-in-law is at household tasks. Afraid of the consequences of talking back, I rarely do. Feeling obligated because I live here, I think it's my fault for not doing a good enough job at housework, and constantly get berated for being an inadequate wife. I tell myself I need to do better. Even when going shopping, I have to ask for money in advance and then return with the change and receipts. Since the receipts are always checked, I can't even buy things I like for myself. I'm sorry. Could I have some money to buy socks? I've been mending my socks, but now they're so worn out that there are holes in them. For your socks, $1 should be enough, right? Emma replied. When handed just $1, I felt like crying out of frustration. Back when I was single, I used to treat myself to clothes or drinks with friends. Now I don't have any money to spend freely. My parents have passed away, and I have no other relatives to turn to, so I thought I had no choice but to endure. A few days later, I received a wedding invitation from my sister, Sophia. After our parents died, we relied on each other. I desperately wanted to attend her important wedding. I begged Oliver and Emma, who were having their evening drink, please let me go to my sister's wedding. A wedding that'll cost money? Do you really have to go? Emma seemed very reluctant. You don't need to go, right? It's a waste of money. Oliver was not on my side either. In this house, there's no one on my side. Fine. Go if you want. I don't want our family to be spoken ill of because of your absence. Emma reluctantly agreed. Really? You're such a useless money eater. Mom is really kind, isn't she? Oliver added. No matter what they said, I was glad to be allowed to go to the wedding. I immediately started packing my bag. While packing clothes, I felt someone behind me. Turning around, I saw Emma standing there. Then she suddenly threw her beer on me. What are you doing, Emma? Without hiding her displeasure, she said, going to a wedding with someone else's money? You're like a thief. She was still angry about me going to the wedding. I do housework every day and never waste money. I had wanted to attend friends' weddings, but had always declined. Is it so wrong to want to attend my only sibling's wedding? I'm sick of even looking at you. Just leave and never come back. I was lost for words at such harshness. You can't even do housework properly, and you want to go to a wedding? How selfish, Oliver smirked, joining in with his parents. Understood, I replied weakly. The drink's gone bad. Let's start over with that. They left the room. Tears dripped onto the bag I was packing. I didn't bother to wipe them away and focused on packing not just clothes, but also my parents' photo and other valuables. Attending the wedding and seeing my sister's radiant face was overwhelming. Sophia, congratulations, I said in the dressing room. My sister's expression changed instantly. Big sis, what happened to you? You've lost so much weight. Are you okay? She looked concerned. Your complexion is really poor. Are you eating properly? It's her big day, and I feel terrible for causing her worry. I tried to force a smile, but my face contorted, and tears started to fall instead. Just sit down for a minute. There's still time. Please tell me what's been going on. I told my sister everything that had happened. That's just terrible. I've been told never to come back. I wonder what I should do now. Should I return to that house and continue living as a housekeeper? I didn't want to go back, but felt like I had no choice. Listen to me, sis. Listen carefully, my sister said, looking into my eyes. Don't go back to that house just because they're family. It doesn't give them the right to take away your freedom. But I have nowhere else to go. I have to go back to that house. My sister took my hand. It's okay. I'm here for you. I'll always stand by you and protect you. After the wedding, my sister helped me find a new apartment, and I started a new life without returning to my in-laws. A week later, Oliver contacted me. I didn't want to answer, but he kept calling, so I reluctantly picked up. Where are you? Come back already, he shouted as soon as I answered. I was surprised for a moment, but I'm not the same person anymore. After talking a lot with my sister, I realized how abnormal my in-laws' house was. At first, I thought it was my fault for not being good at housework. You're not the one at fault, my sister kept encouraging me. I was told never to come back, so I won't be returning. I could hear a click of the tongue over the phone. Stop being so insolent and come back to apologize to Mom. I was amazed at how much he took Emma's side. I don't want to come back. I can't take it anymore. You're living in our house without earning or even doing proper housework. Just come back now. He hung up after that. But even living separately, the ties to my in-laws' house remained. To discuss a divorce, I went to my in-laws' house with my sister and her husband. The first thing I noticed was a foul smell when we entered. It smelled like rotting garbage that hadn't been taken out for days. Laundry was scattered everywhere, and the sink was overflowing with dishes. Had the house gotten this bad in just a few weeks? I was shocked at how different it was from when I lived there. We moved things around to make space to sit. Then I spoke up. I want a divorce. What? Don't joke around, Oliver said, slamming his hand on the table. It's true. You're complaining about having an incompetent wife living here, aren't you? Both Oliver and Emma reacted angrily, unable to accept it, but I had made up my mind. I wouldn't run away anymore. Just come back and do your housework. It's your fault the house is dirty. They blamed me for the mess they made living there. Please calm down, my sister intervened. Eva wants a divorce, and since she's been treated so harshly, we'll be requesting alimony in the divorce case. Oliver and his parents were taken aback by the mention of alimony. What are you talking about? We haven't done anything wrong. They had no sense of guilt despite their mistreatment. Based on what Eva has told us, we believe an alimony claim in the divorce case is justified, my sister said. Oliver, still in disbelief, shouted, What? If you want alimony that badly, hire a lawyer or whatever. You probably don't have the money for it, but go ahead. We'll do whatever it takes for the case. I wasn't scared of his threatening words. Yes, that's exactly what we plan to do. I am Eva's representative, her lawyer. At my sister's words, Oliver and his parents were lost for words. My husband is also a lawyer, so the two of us will fight this with all our might. Be prepared, okay? What did you say? As for the legal fees, I could possibly accept money for helping dear Eva, who has always been so kind to me. My sister was methodically explaining while cornering him. In preparation for the divorce case, we reviewed Eva's diaries and emails. They will all be submitted as evidence. I heard about the incident with a beer being thrown at you. Is that true? That is... She spoke calmly as a lawyer, but it was clear my sister was quite angry. I understand Eva was also pushed by you. That was just me scolding her for not being able to mop properly. Emma was increasingly becoming flustered. Does scolding leave bruises? I was shocked to see the bruises when we met at the wedding. We immediately took her to the hospital for treatment. And of course, we have a medical report. Emma seemed at a loss for words. This evidence will also be submitted. My sister and her husband listened to my story attentively, gathering all the evidence. I can't thank them enough. How can you say that? Don't you feel any gratitude for living here for free? Emma started yelling in anger. Exactly. Do you know how much extra it costs just to have you here? Don't mess with me. Oliver's harsh words made me realize how wrong this marriage was. Shall we continue? We're recording this entire conversation, you know. At my sister's words, Oliver and my in-laws were speechless. They didn't expect to be recorded. After that, they became quiet, unable to complain, knowing they were being recorded. Please be aware that any future calls or emails will also be used as evidence if there is any stalking-like behavior. We will report it. My sister is an excellent lawyer. Without her, I couldn't have separated or divorced. You'll agree to the divorce, right? Mediation and legal fees can be quite expensive. Oliver and the in-laws were whispering, but eventually seemed to agree. Fine, I'll give you a divorce. I had them sign the divorce papers before they could change their minds. While talking with my sister after separating, I suddenly wondered, why hadn't Oliver ever been on my side? When I asked her about it, she thought for a moment and then asked, You know how men can have such fragile egos? Can you think of anything? I couldn't think of anything in particular. Had I inadvertently hurt Oliver's pride without realizing it? As I pondered this, my sister suggested, Try remembering things from before you got married. That made me recall something from before the proposal. Now that you mention it, I remember getting scolded for bragging when I talked about college. It was during a date when we saw posters for various university open campuses aimed at high school students. One of them was for my alma mater, which I mentioned, causing him to become noticeably upset. Maybe it's an inferiority complex about education. He gets upset if someone seems superior. Were there other instances he seemed like someone with high pride? I hadn't thought much of it, but now that I did, several things came to mind. Actually, I earned a higher salary than him, but after we got married, he insisted I quit my job and become a housewife. Even when I said, it's common for both spouses to work these days, he absolutely refused. Yeah, it's definitely better for both spouses to work. I had doubts, but eventually I got tired of arguing and quit my job. It was a job I loved and wanted to continue. He probably wanted to trap his wife, who had a higher education and income at home. Watching me get harassed by your mother-in-law probably satisfied his ego. If that was the reason, I was hurt. It's truly sad. I could feel all the love I had left for Oliver disappearing without a trace. You're ungrateful after we kindly let a poor person like you live here without earning anything. Emma's sarcasm didn't stop. Without this house, you'd probably be homeless. No need to worry. I have an inheritance left by my parents. Oliver and the in-laws opened their eyes wide in surprise. What? You hid that? I never hid it. I couldn't even say I was using the inheritance to buy groceries, fearing they'd accuse me of stealing money. So, include that money in the division of property, then pay the security deposit for the divorce case, and we take the rest. No, that's not how it works. Property and inheritance before marriage don't enter into the division of property. Huh? Oliver seemed to think he would get half of my inheritance after the divorce. That's why. Only the property acquired after marriage is subject to division. Even as a housewife, I get half. So don't be mistaken. So I have to pay for the division of property and the security deposit for the divorce? That's what I'm saying. At this, Oliver suddenly became panicked. Hey, why don't we just keep living here? You won't have to pay rent or anything. He started to hesitate about the divorce, but I already had the divorce papers. Absolutely not. You never once took my side, just treating me like a housekeeper. I never want to see your face again. At my firm stance, Oliver had nothing more to say. The divorce went through smoothly, and Oliver had to pay the security deposit for the divorce case. Realizing he couldn't win against a skilled lawyer with all the evidence, he must have given up. After the divorce, Oliver apparently badmouthed me at his company. I was just deceived. Glad to be rid of such a wicked wife, he tried to justify himself. I didn't want to pay the security deposit for the divorce case, but I had to, huh? That means you did something bad enough to pay for a security deposit, right? He faltered when a colleague pointed it out. I just kept her in line as my wife was getting too cocky. Or I scared her with Mom because she was annoying. That's what he seems to have said. His colleagues hearing this, "Is Oliver's wife okay?" were worried. Once it was known why he had to pay the security deposit, his position at the company deteriorated. Oliver resigned from the company. With his pride, he probably couldn't stand the cold treatment from his colleagues. The in-laws, now without income, seemed to be living poorly. Oliver's salary wasn't high, and the money for groceries was always limited. I used to find cheap supermarkets and save with points to manage somehow. Without anyone to do housework, their house must be in a mess. Then Oliver contacted me. I can't make ends meet and have to sell the family home. It's not my responsibility. Can you help us out? After everything, he still doesn't understand. Eventually, the family home was put up for sale. Now Oliver and his parents live in a cheap apartment, blaming each other for their situation. To me, it's just desserts, but they can't seem to accept responsibility. As for me, I'm returning to the job I loved before marriage. My sister and her husband didn't want payment, but I insisted to mark the end of it all, a fancy dinner as thanks. Didn't seem enough to express my gratitude. Delicious, my sister said, happily eating, making me happy too. That's why I said so I'll always protect my sister. My sister was always there for me, on my side since I'm family. I want to be able to help you whenever you're in trouble. I'm done with marriage. What are you saying? I'm sure there's someone out there who will be on your side. Can someone like me who had given up on marriage and children find happiness again? Before, I had no freedom and couldn't hope for the future. But now, I want to walk my own path and reclaim my life. Got any plans for what you want to do? Thinking about it, I said. First, I'll go buy some fancy socks. What's that about? Laughing, we enjoyed the moment together.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? Alright, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.